Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to talk about the top 10 knives that I will happily overpay for. I want to explain exactly what that means. I do not want to offend any companies, any knife makers, anything like that. This doesn't necessarily mean that the knives on this list are overpriced. There's different reasons that I will pay more than what I think each knife is worth in certain circumstances, and I'm going to do my best to explain that. We all have our weaknesses, right? We all have our own sense of value. But if you're a knife nut, if you're somebody who's been in this knife world for a really long time, you know that feeling, right? When you find something that you want and your sense of value goes completely and totally out the window, right? By the way, if you're new to my channel and you're not used to the screen recorded stuff, I do have full comprehensive reviews of each knife on this list, right, where I actually have a recording of me physically handling the knife, going over it, right? So if you don't like the screen recorded stuff, that's fine. You can just type in Metal Complex and then the knife on YouTube, and you can find my actual review of the knife so you can get more details on it. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there's a link down in the description. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If there are links available for these knives, I will link them down below. But some of them are not available, which kind of goes into the whole, overpaying thing. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this. First up, the first knife on the list is the Combat Troodon. This is a situation where, like Microtech knives in general, a lot of people look at them and say, that's a little bit too much money. Some of the knives in their line, I think, are spot on, right? I mean, the price on the Microtech Ultratech, I think, is just fine. The UTX85, there's a bunch of knives. The Combat Troodon's price, the knife is very high quality, right? We're looking at aircraft aluminum and 204P. I own one. I own a Hellhound, actually, it costs even more money than the standard. Standard version of this is $485. They have some decent competition, especially when considering Guardian tactical knives, right? I don't know why this is $485. To me, this is maybe like a $400 knife. The funny thing is that I'll just go ahead and pay that amount of money for this knife, right? I know, like, if I'm clicking, add to cart and checkout, I know that I'm spending more money than I'm comfortable considering what my value system is, right? But I love the Combat Troodon so much that it kind of just, takes that feeling and negates it. Well, it doesn't completely negate it, but I know how it feels in hand, and I just love it, right? So it's weird because my sense of value, my foundation for what I consider, worth it, it gets subdued. Not completely shut out, it gets subdued by the cool factor here. I think a lot of you are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, not just with this knife, but with a lot of different knives, right? Even if the knives on the list don't correlate to your feelings. But anyways, the Combat Troodon is definitely something that I feel like, yeah, it's a little too much money, but I'm going to go ahead and pay for it anyway. Next up, the Spyderco Shaman. Listen, I've said this many times. When this knife first came out, it was something around $150. Then they bumped it to $180, which is already too much. And then they bumped it again here recently to $205. I overpaid for it when I bought mine. I did not buy mine when they came out at $150. I bought it when they were about $180, $185. And you know what? As soon as Spyderco comes out with another version of the Spyderco Shaman in a steel that I want, in the finish that I want, I know that it's going to be too much money, and I'm going to go ahead and buy it anyway because I love the Shaman that much. It's one of those things I just have to admit, it's too much money for this knife, and not every knife on the list is going to be like this, but the Spyderco Shaman is, comparing to other knives that are in the same, caliber, it's too much money. But the design is so good, I'm just like, yeah, you got me. Go ahead, So, yeah, the Spyderco Shaman is absolutely, it's one of those knives. It's like, it's too much money, but it's recommendable, So moving on here, this is the Hinder. I know people are like, whoa, he's put a Hinder on this. So I think the Hinder XM18 3.5 inch, the 3 inch. In fact, most of the models in the line are well worth the money. The XM24 is an incredibly high quality knife. Unbelievable. This is an XM24. The one we're looking at is a vintage series here, which costs even more than the standard XM24. The standard XM24 is $600. This is really hard for me. I'm dancing around this, but I'm not sure how to explain to people how the XM24 is $200 more of a knife, $175 more of a knife. It feels more like $550. You know, like it's that extra 50. I'm like, yeah, it's really big. I love the XM24. I love this knife. It fills my heart with joy. It's everything that I love about Hinder knives in a supersized package. So, you know, yeah, it's just every time I get the itch to buy one, it's like getting slapped in the face with a silly hammer, right? And you're like, hey, here you go. But I'm not saying that necessarily that I think the XM24 is like massively overpriced. It's just very difficult for me to explain to people looking at I've had people ask me, should I go with the XM18? Should I go with the XM24? Right? And I'm like, yeah, it's almost another $200 if you really need a really big version of it, you know? But then you get it in hand and you're like, I don't even care. You know, the one that I've got, I cannot tell you, there's no part of me that's like, oh gosh, that money that I spent. No, it just brings me that much happiness. So in terms of, with the XM24, if there's one that comes out that I really, really want, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and pay for it. It makes me feel that good afterwards. So we're glass half full. It's how I'm approaching this. Moving on here, the Benchmade Mini Crooked River, specifically a custom variant. Listen, everybody knows that Benchmade pricing is a little bit wackadoodle, right? And then you go into their custom shop and you're going to pay even more, right? So, but in terms of all the knives that Benchmade does, the Mini Crooked River is definitely one of their best knives. You take that to the next level by going into their custom shop and customizing it. Why is that such a big deal? This has a bolster and a pivot collar. Right, so 2 additional elements, right? You can customize the blade finish, the blade steel, the bolster color. Well, it's, you know, satin or the coated one, right? But then the color of the pivot collar, the color of the backspacer, the color of the scales, the pocket clip, so many different combinations, right? You will pay too much money for this if you want one of these. If you want a custom one, you're gonna pay too much money for it. But oh my God, is it satisfying. I have one that somebody made for me. Actually, Shaker, my buddy, made me this a while back. Blue and black with a blue pivot collar, the blue, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I can almost guarantee that thing cost him between $240 and $260. Thank you very much, Shaker. That's still in my collection, and I still EDC it. I love that thing. It's too much money for it. But oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's wonderful, right? So yeah, it's one of those things where it hurts, and then you get it, and you're like, I don't care anymore. And it makes you, it makes me, you know, think I would buy another one of these. I would pay too much money again for the same thing, right? Benchmade Mini Crooked River Custom, definitely deserving a spot on the list. Moving on here, the ZT0392 is a different situation here. I think the this old factory custom, as they called it, these came in originally at $390, which I think was reasonable, right? Back then, I mean, today, I don't know. Today, it's hard. It's like, what's the difference between this and the ZT0562 Ti, right? Other than the fact that we got Hinder factory custom art. For anybody who doesn't know, this is a Hinder and ZT collaboration that ended a long time ago. There's there's like 7 different versions of this. It actually has Hinder factory custom hardware. It's based on the Hinder Eclipse, full titanium 204P steel, right? I don't know if the $390 price tag would fly today, given the competition that's out there, right? But it sure does feel almost exactly the same as a real Hinderer. I don't understand the processes of this versus a Hinder XM18. In any case, what has happened on the secondary market with these guys is that they've blown the price through the roof. I have such a deep infatuation with this model. It's just caked in nostalgia for me, and I've actually owned a couple of them. The all black one that I had was perfect. I don't know why I ever let that one go. The green and black one I got, everybody's heard that story. It had some detent lash, and the guy said that there was nothing wrong with it, and I messaged him about it, and he was like, hey, I don't know, man. Hey, it's yours now. Douche. So, anyways, I hope that guy's watching. I remember you, buddy. Anyways, the secondary market prices on these have just gone through the roof. The day that I find and am confident about the perfect black-green model, which is not this guy, It's black. The one that I'm talking about is black and green. It's black handle, two-tone black and satin blade, and then the green hardware. I will pay too much money for it. I've seen those go for around $550, maybe they're even more now. It's the collector enthusiast in me. I will. And people always message me. I'm not in the moment ready to do that, but there will come a day where I'm ready to have that knife in my collection. I will pay too much money for it, right? Are they worth that much? No. Will I pay that much for it? Yes. Oh man, this is such a contradictive thing, right? I just feel like people will be able to relate to this. Knife nuts will be able to relate to going, that's too much money. Take my money. You know, we do that, right? Moving on here, the Microtech Stitch. Listen, this is a Borka Blades collaboration. This is an automatic knife. You're looking at aircraft aluminum. You're looking at 204P steel. I reviewed this knife and just absolutely gushed over it. These are $380, right? Now, given, like, if I'm going to compare this with the SOCOM Elite, the SOCOM Elite is also aircraft aluminum, has the kind of oversized hardware, has a 204P blade that's not the simplest grind in the world. This is a more complex grind. The handle has some interesting texturing on it. It's contoured. It's going to be a little more. There's more complex machine work going into this versus the Combat Troodon, right? $100 more? I don't know. I've always felt like every time I look at this knife and I'm like, God, I want that. And then I look at the price and I'm like, eh. But if they, you know, if I was in the moment, I just had the money ready. Here recently, I just made a gigantic purchase. So all of this stuff, all I can do is just, you know, make a video and rant about it. I'm not in a position to be able to buy the stuff. Even I've seen a couple of these floating around out there. But if I was ready to go in the moment, had the money, and one became available, would I pay for it? Yeah. It's the cool factor on this guy. It's wild, right? The look is super wild. The ergonomic lines on this thing are just absolutely melted butter. Just so, oh, it's so good, right? The firing switch on this thing is cool. They're unbelievably powerful. This is probably the most powerful side-opening automatic knife I've ever felt. It's massively overbuilt, right? It's just cool. It's so outside of the normal, right, for a knife. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's like, you know, I know people are going to be like, oh, no, knives are just supposed to cut, right? Why are you paying so much money for a knife? Okay, welcome to the enthusiast corner of the knife world, right? It gets weird here. You're in weird territory. I'm a weird YouTuber. But yeah, the Stitch, that definitely. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that it absolutely is overpriced, right? Just by my internal feelings, my internal that instinct. It's like, it's there, but I'm gonna go ahead and pay for it because I like it that much. Moving on here now, before everybody gets what, you know, wait a sec. This is the Bryan Ado Evo Typhoon. The price on these originally is completely and totally in line. These originally, when the first ones came out in 2017, I want to say they were about $300 if you did the pre-order price. Maybe a little bit more if you didn't pre-order it, right? And then these new ones here in 2020, I think they started out at something like $350. Completely reasonable, absolutely. Now, I had one of these, and I sold it because I have the 2020 model coming in. And I can't wait for it. I paid a lot more for that one, but that one's a little bit more dressed up. Let's say I didn't have either of these, right? And I had just handled it because I reviewed one and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? This is one of my favorite folding knives of all time. Let's say I find a 2017 model on the secondary market and they want $375 for it, right? 75 up from what they originally went for, or even $400. Would I pay that much for it? It's one of those rare circumstances where I might actually go for it on the secondary market. After experiencing this and realizing how much I loved it. That's the thing. You have that connection, that soul-binding connection with a knife. All of a sudden, your original foundation of value goes out the window. And you're just like, I just want it, right? So to experience that and claim ownership over the item, would I spend a little bit too much money for it on the secondary market? Yeah, I probably would. It's that good, right? If you're going to do that, make sure that because here's the thing, I can't give you guys a link for this one, right? And in a lot of situations, I'm like, don't overpay for it on the secondary market because more of them will come. This is one of those things where I don't know. There was years between the two runs of these, right? and they're hard to get. A lot of times you have no choice but to go to the secondary market. This is one of those knives where the original price was so good for what you're getting. It's kind of justified. Just make sure that the person you're buying from, make sure you trust and make sure it's actually in the condition they say that it's in, right? And if that's the case, then yeah, I would say it's probably worth a little bit more money. At least it is to me. So if you value my opinion, I guess go on that. Moving on here, the Rockstead Hego II. Oh my God, Rocksteads are so expensive. They're so expensive. I never understood. This is one of those weird things. So somebody sent me a Rockstead Hego II, and truthfully, I said this in the review. Like I just loved it. It's obviously masterfully crafted. The blades are incredible. Mirror finish on those things. The zero edge, right? The shadow boxing on the titanium, and these come in different forms, right? You can actually buy these right now. The scales look like they might be wood or G10. No, they're carbon fiber. They just look bizarre. The hardware is beautiful. Everything about this knife is so beautiful. It's so stand out from the norm, and the feeling of it, right? The contouring, the ergonomics. It feels like absolute luxury. This is the most confusing knife. I look at a picture of it and I'm like, they want how much for that? They want $1,500 for that. $1,500 for that. Are they insane, right? Then I got it in hand, and I was like, that's a lot of money. But oh my God, do I want this, right? There will come a day, not anytime in the immediate future, but there will come a day where I will own this knife. Knowing, right? I can't tell you exactly whether or not, I think I said this in a review. It's really hard for me to put my finger on exactly how they came to that price, right? But in any amount of money over about the $800 mark, it's really hard for me. It's like, well, there's more processes, right? These are obviously time laborious, items. The more time they put into it, the more money it's going to cost, right? But it gets more and more and more confusing after about the $800 mark, or even the $600 mark sometimes, right? $1,500, right? So somebody said, so you're telling me this versus the Shirogorov Quantum, there's an extra $500 there? I'd be like, I guess. It's one of those things where once people handle them, I think all of a sudden it's like, oh, I still don't get it, but now I want it, right? I do want this knife. $1,500 is a lot of money. Too much money for me. It's out of my comfort zone, right? That's what I'm going to say about this. $1,500 is out of my comfort zone. Whether or not that it's justified based on what goes into it, it certainly is an incredibly well-made knife. Unbelievably well-made knife, right? It's out of my comfort zone. But would I go out of my comfort zone for this guy? Would I pay too much money for it? Not necessarily saying it's overpriced, just pay too much money versus what I'm comfortable paying. Yes, I would. I love it that much. And, oh, no, we got a couple left here. Here's definitely the most expensive knife on the list. This is an MSC SNG. These are basically unicorns. Multiple $1,000 knives just for simple titanium, and, that the blades are hand ground. That's where a lot of the money goes into. These are custom knives, right? So, well, maybe they did the CNC on the, on the scales, right? And then obviously they have to machine the hardware, but the blades are completely and totally hand ground on these guys, and that's where a lot of what you pay for goes into it. This is a Strider, by the way. Multiple thousands of dollars for these. So you're talking about, maybe $1,500 on the low end if you're lucky. What you're looking at here is at least $2,000. When it was available, this exact knife, I have no idea. This exact knife was probably from 2015 or 2016. I've been obsessed with the full titanium, the custom Striders for so long. This is actually an XL SNG, right? So this is a 4.5-inch blade monster knife. My idea of true Excalibur, actually, the only picture of a knife that I've ever seen that actually hits every single nail on the head was a picture from Monkey Edge a long time ago of one that had diamond texturing, right? It was just absolutely perfect. It was about $2,000, something like that. I can't tell. There's no way for me to tell you and people who buy Strider knives, buy custom Strider knives, are probably absolutely and completely satisfied. When you're buying a custom knife, you're spending a lot more money on stuff that's completely and totally outside the realm of utility, right? You're paying more than about $600 for a knife. Honestly, you're paying for a lot more than just the fact that it is a knife and can cut. right? You're paying for the finished work, you're paying for the craftsmanship, sometimes you're paying for the name or the prestige of the item, right? And that's, you know, if you're running a business, you're making knives, right, and you're putting your time and energy into it, right, and you're building your company, people are going to have different opinions, but I think, you know, in some situations it's okay, you know, to say this is the time that I put into it, this is what I feel it's worth, right? This is me getting paid for the work that I do. After I've honed my craft, I've created, you know, something that is very polished, very refined, and this is what I think that it's worth. If people are willing to pay that money, if the market supports it, then it's justified. It simply is. If you're not in the market to pay for a $2,000 or $2,500 knife, if you're not even in the market for it, right, then I'm not going to say your opinion doesn't matter. It's just, it's kind of wasted energy, right? I'm just trying to put myself in both ballparks, in both perspectives, right? Okay, rant over. Given all of that, $2,500 is, or roughly around there for what I would consider my dream custom Strider, is way outside of my comfort zone. I can't, there's not a way for me to, you know, justify it internally. I've definitely paid way too much money for knives before. This is so far out of the realm of normal, right? But if I found it, would I want to sell a whole bunch of knives to, you know, put those funds together? And I can't just pay for, I'm not rich, right? I can't just, you know, throw money at stuff and get it. I'd have to sell a bunch of knives. Would I do it if the right one came available? Yeah, I would. And I would know that I was paying too much money for a knife. I would know that, or at least way outside of my comfort zone, right? There's no way to say 100% that it's absolutely worth it or not worth it. It's perspective, right? And then the element of what it costs to make it, and there's a million different variables here, right? The fact is there's a market to support this stuff. People buy them. They buy them so quickly that you can't buy them, right? We don't have the option to just go and buy or not buy a Strider most of the time, and especially the custom ones, right? They're simply gone before they arrive. So it's it's one of those. If I had the option, though, would I do it? Would I overpay for it? Given all that information, yes, I would. And of course, the last knife on the list, the Medford Praetorian tie. I've enjoyed every Medford knife that I've owned, and while I do recognize that a lot of people look at these and they argue about it. Well, you know, is it worth the money? They use D2 and titanium. First off, again, I have to say this every single time. It's not just D2. It's not the same D2 you're getting on a Rat or some other China. It's CPM D2. CPM. It's a completely and totally different monster than just regular old D2. Right? On top of that, these are professionally sharpened. They have to be because they're massively thick. And then on top of that, they are professionally heat treated. You're getting way more than that $40 knife you bought at whatever retailer, right, that's using D2 steel. Not even in the same ballpark. On top of that, their PVD coating, if you get, you know, a knife that's PVD coating, is incredibly well done. Their tumbling's well done. Their Vulcan finish work is really well done. Right. They also use S35VN, and if you shop at the DLT Trading, if you shop at DLT Trading, I'll actually link these guys, or Medford knives at DLT. They do S90V blades, which is exclusive to DLT, right? They use massively thick titanium, right? To a lot of people, the reason that a lot of people say these are overpriced is because they're just looking at a picture and they're just like, it's just a couple of pieces of metal just slapped together. Anybody who's actually handled a Medford, and some people will disagree with me, but if you've handled one, it becomes much more apparent what you're paying for. It's really not just materials slapped together. There's a lot of work that goes into this, right? Greg Medford wants to achieve a certain aesthetic, right? The heavy duty, the robust, right? The hardcore. He's trying to achieve a certain aesthetic, but the finish work is there. The extra craftsmanship, the extra work that goes into these is there. That being said, there's a couple of models where I just don't quite understand the price, and the one that's definitely massively kind of, the Praetorian tie. Listen, you can get a Praetorian T that's the exact same thing, but just a little bit thinner for hundreds of dollars less, right? Praetorian T comes in at what? 700 base? Maybe 750, something like that. These guys, 1,200 base price. I don't understand it, but I have owned one, and I paid too much money for it then, and I loved it. I ended up selling it to buy something else. Then a lot of people think that if I sell a knife, it means I don't really love it that much. No, I'm a knife guy. I have to sell things to get more things. I have the itch all the time, right? So is that financially stupid? Oh yeah, definitely. But I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm not going to stop, right? Would I do it again? Yeah. This thing is incredible, right? It's difficult to carry. It's meaty. It's chunky. It's ridiculous. I love it for that. I love overbuilt knives. These are made in the United States, right? There definitely is a lot of money. I don't care what anybody says. If you try to tell me that this knife costs just as much to make as some other titanium and D2 knife in China, no, not even close. This knife factually costs way more to make than a lot of other knives sporting the same materials, right? Not just about materials. It's definitely not about just about materials. There's way more work that goes into these. But is $1,200 or $1,300 totally justified for this thing? Ugh. Every time I look at it and I look at that price tag, I'm like, geesh. But then I get it in hand and I'm like, I love this and I don't care, right? So, yeah. You can get these on the secondary market now for a little less, right? Maybe dip your toes in with that, right? But I don't know. Is it worth it? No, but yes. I will overpay for that. I can see myself owning another one of these in the future. Like I said, guys, a lot of these will be listed right down below. I hope this didn't stir anything up. Again, if any of the companies or knife makers, if you're watching this, I meant no offense by it, right? I tried to glass half full it and just tell you guys, me personally, my personal system of value kind of goes out the window. It's the want factor, right? The X factor that's pulling me in and going, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pay for that, right? Despite this going against my, my subconscious feelings or my what's the word I'm looking for? It goes against not my intuition, but my instincts, right? My value system based on instinct. It goes against the grain, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, right? So all meant in just in positive light. This is all just for entertainment, just giving you guys my opinions. Obviously, when I say something is overpriced, it is not factual, it's just an opinion, right? So don't get too bent out of shape. Yeah, I hope you guys found this mildly entertaining. Like I said, there'll be links down in the description for knives on this list that you can actually pick up. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.